Hein, at a very young age, developed a passion for buggies, bicycles, and trains. His passion for railroads and trains led to many great achievements. Getting there did require many years of training. Hein's favorite place was his grandfather's cabin. The occupation of the Germans during World War II brought hard times. Potatoes and cod liver oil was the main staple of life during these years. Hein would lie in the underbrush and take pictures of the German planes. Luckily, he was never discovered. I knew Hein as both a respected colleague and a good friend. Those of you who know me are familiar with my tendency to tell persons of authority what I think they need to know, whether they want to or not. Frequently not. Hein never had a problem with this. He was more than competent to make up his own mind on such things. Hein was a great source of inspiration to those who worked for him. I still take his admonition to heart that if everything you do succeeds, you are not trying hard enough. Hein also believed that all decisions were inherently easy. Either you had enough information that the correct choice was obvious, or you didn't, in which case you might as well flip a coin. Hein was always modest about his considerable contribution to the development of NREO. It is true that Hein didn't take much nonsense, but beneath a sometimes gruff exterior, he knew, and those of us who knew him well knew, that beneath it all he was really a pussycat. On several occasions he expressed amazement to me that many people at NREO appeared to be afraid of him. My greatest source of interaction with Hein was over our shared obsession of cycling. When I first started riding with Hein in the early 1980s, he had organized a friendly uncle's bicycle club at NREO for evening and weekend rides. As such, he was always on the lookout for nieces, and nephews, or even uncles were also welcome. In those days, there were as many as a dozen on our ride. There was a tradition that, for their birthday, nieces were thrown into a river along the way, actually quite refreshing in the Virginia summer heat. The number of riders dwindled as NREO grew older and more feeble, but Hein was like an Energizer bunny. He just kept going. Hein was always in excellent physical condition, but had endless patience for those of us who weren't. He was always waiting at the top of the hill when the rest of us, huffing and puffing, finally made it. On several of the earliest rides, I was unable to walk when I got home. Hein's wire sense of humor was always present. The length of rides were measured in picoparsecs, a very large fraction of a very large distance, about 22 miles. When distances must be given in miles, he would invoke logarithmic rounding, wherein numbers larger than about 35 were rounded to 100. Hein loved hills, at least the uphill side. No hill was too steep, too long, with too much loose gravel. A good ride would include Peacock Hill, Fox Mountain, Skyline Drive, or on occasion Greenbank Picnic. No pain, no Hein, we used to say. He would reply, no Hein, no pain. My preference was for the part of hills that Hein didn't care for, the downhill side. We kept trying to work out a trade where he got all the uphills and I got all the downhills, but there were some technical problems, laws of physics, that we were never able to work out. Hein, your boundless energy, your enthusiasm and encouragement will be missed. I met Hein when I joined the NREO in 1969 as an astronomer. Soon I became friend of the 140-foot and worked with Hein replacing the old analog pointing system with a modern digital one. He taught me about critical path management, PERT. Thanks to PERT, the installation was done within schedule. It was a terrific learning experience for me. He also taught me about attitude. After reading in a bicycle book that one should never disassemble a Sturmey Archer 3-speed planetary shift in a Riley bicycle, Hein immediately rushed to his basement, took his apart, and reassembled it successfully. The message for all of us: don't be cowed by expert advice. Our big adventure was a 1976 trip from Missoula, Montana to Pueblo, Colorado. The trip was over 1,100 miles, routed over many mountain passes. Time-wise, we spent most of our time pedaling uphill. In the beginning, Hein's superior physical conditioning thoroughly eclipsed me on every hill. He was about 15 years older than I was. By the end, my youthfulness won out, and I usually reached the top of the passes ahead of him, but only near the end of our trip. We ran on cheeseburgers and French fries. Both of us ate several a day, sometimes even for breakfast. This iconic food may have been a novel for a Norwegian, but he certainly knew about cheese. While we considered the trip to be a big adventure, our fellow cyclists on the trip could not believe we were pedaling for just 2 weeks. They, on the other hand, were pedaling across the entire country. In their eyes, we were wimps. So much of life is perspective. I shall miss Hein. He was a personal, enthusiastic person, always willing to try new things and enjoy to spend time with. Rest well, my friend. You deserve it. Mark. Hein's favorite cycling association that he supported was Adventure Cycling. They developed the Great Divide Mountain Bike Route, a bike route following the Great Divide from Canada to Mexico. Hein had bought a mile in the Union Pass area in Wyoming, and then in 1998 he organized an expedition to ride his mile. Checking out railroad tracks and trains on the way was a requirement. Hein's mile designation on the map is 11, a beautiful 9,300-foot plateau. The expedition crew consisted of Donna, Jean, Meg, Greg, Hein, and Dave. Here we are, starting up the mountain, and camping duties kept us all busy in the evening. Hein giving out early morning advice to the young, pausing to enjoy the scenery along the way. If the going got really tough, we did let Hein drive. But for the most part, he did prefer riding. Advice and encouragement for the young was never in short. Hein on guard duty. Here we are, relaxing around an evening campfire. And here, the north end of Hein's mile. Hein back home. A year later, in 1999, Greg, Dave, Jean, and Hein made a biking and camping trip to Pie Town, New Mexico area. Hein really enjoyed this trip. He got to ride a train from Charlottesville to Albuquerque and back. He had the company of a young cyclist and ham radio operator. First class support was provided by Dave and Greg. Peter Napier and Craig Walker, two longtime colleagues of Hein, met us in Pie Town. From there we biked south and spent the night camping. The time Hein had with Peter and Greg, priceless. To Hein, our visit to VOA and Pie Town VLBA site was like a visit to see his grandchildren.